It is an honor and gives me great pleasure to welcome Kevin Weil to Cass Business School. Kevin, welcome to Engaging the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Thank you so much for having me, Prosper.
Amazing, amazing. So, Kevin, let's begin a bit with your history, your background, and where it all began for you. It's clear that you're somebody that knows how to, shape the world that you live in, to mold the world that you live in, to become a builder, to become a shaper. Many of us who, grow up, we're told, the world is the way it is, and we're supposed to fit within it, stay within the lines, don't bash into the walls, get married, have a good life, raise some children, etc., and rush to marriage like my parents were telling me. When did you realize that, as Steve Jobs said, you could poke a part of life and another part of it will pop out, and we can actually shape and mold life into what we actually want it to be? Was it your physics background that gave you this understanding?
I think I'm still definitely learning every single day. For me, it's interesting. I grew up wanting to study math and physics. That was what I wanted to do. I came out to the Bay Area to do grad school in physics at Stanford. I thought I was going to be a physics professor for the rest of my life, and I was super excited about that. And I was studying theoretical physics, which means that you're making a contribution, maybe over the course of your lifetime. You're trying to think about the ways that new particles could interact, but you may not be even able to measure them because you're waiting for the next particle accelerator to come along. And at some point, I ended up meeting my now wife, Elizabeth, who, depending on the topics we go into, you'll realize has had a major part in basically every job I've ever gotten.
Fantastic.
And she kind of opened my eyes to the fact that I was sitting there in the middle of Silicon Valley, and instead of maybe being able to make a contribution over the course of a lifetime in the world of physics, I could go work at a startup and between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. one day ship something to 1 million people. And it was just a realization that I wanted to have that kind of impact. I wanted to actually build something that mattered to people and work with the team, create things, and be able to iterate quickly on them, because that's ultimately how you get a product right. And so it was just this, it was a very big change for me, but a positive one, to realize that I could actually go jump in, start working at some of these companies and, ship things that impact people's lives in a positive way. And I think it's one of the nice things about Silicon Valley, to be honest. They kind of give, they make it possible for, I think I was 23 at the time, for 23-year-olds to actually go and do that.
Let's talk about that. Did you think at 23, Kevin, let's fast forward 5 years, 7 years, I'm going to be, working on products that are going to affect every facet of society, every part of the world. People are going to be consuming my product. They're going to be engaging with what I'm building. I'm going to be changing the world on a daily basis. Did that even cross your mind that you'd be doing something like that? And what was that like? What was that transition and that journey like?
I mean, never. It never crossed my mind. I never would have guessed in a million years that I would be lucky enough to be doing what I'm doing now. I'm not one of those people that plans a career out 5, 10, 20 years in advance. It was much more, the first 2 startups I went to didn't work. And so I worked with great people and I learned a ton, but I wouldn't say that either of them changed the world. And then my wife actually had a good friend from one of her programs at school who was at Twitter. And as I was thinking about the next thing I would go work on, she said, oh, well, Twitter's interviewing, or Twitter's looking for someone to come in and lead the analytics team. What if you go interview there? And so I did, but Twitter was like this 40-person, starting to be big back then.
It wasn't the behemoth it is now, obviously.
No, it was 40 people. It was maybe a few million users. And I was 25. I had no clue what was really what it could become. And so it was much more about just looking for ways to be helpful when I was at the company, trying to think of things that would benefit the people using Twitter. And it was also getting really lucky to have the mentorship and support of some amazing people that gave me opportunities that frankly, they had no business giving me, but they took bets on me, and I worked really hard to try and make those bets good ones.
Fabulous, fabulous. Let's talk about some of those bets. You took the Twitter ad product from 0 to 2 billion in just over 3 years. Obviously, when you joined Instagram, 500 million, active monthly users, a good product. But within the time you were there, you took them through to over 1 billion monthly active users. It's safe to say the kind of platform war that you had with Snapchat at that time, you did very well. Instagram did very well out of that. You've created opportunities for thousands of influencers to actually, provide for themselves, provide for their families, provide good content for users. You've created a few billionaires along the way. We're now in an environment where every organization, every student, all of our students here, every business leader, every CEO is now thinking about how we operate in a very hyper digitized environment. Okay. And, the products you have worked on, Twitter, Instagram, what you're doing now with Novi, are the gold standard. In creating these kinds of services, Kevin, what does success look like? How did you do it? How do you drive a product through to such amazing growth? And even if many organizations can't do this, and our students themselves, they can't do that, where can they begin to at least point in the right direction?
Well, I think the first thing that I want to correct you slightly on is I didn't do any of these things. I worked with great teams who made all of it possible. I think that is the number one thing, because any individual can only go so far. But if you get a team of amazing people around you, you're going to get better ideas. You're going to get a better product ultimately. And that's how anything that I've ever worked on, credit is first to the team. And that's actually, I think it's a big part of how you build great products. One of the things that I learned from Kevin Systrom at Instagram is the importance of making sure that a product has a really knows what it wants to be, that you have a core vision for what the product is going to become. He did that better than anybody that I've ever worked with. Instagram had a very clear mission that it was trying to serve, and Kevin was very decisive about the ways that Instagram would fulfill that mission for people. He left room for people to ideate and so on, but he was very particular. And Mike Krieger, his co-founder, also deserves a ton of credit for this. He was very particular about making sure that at the end of the day, even though Instagram was built and designed by lots of different people, it felt like it was designed by a single person. There were no corners of the product that you could tell, were something totally separate. It felt like it was designed by a single person because Instagram had a single mission. I'll give you, and he wasn't afraid to evolve that, but it. I'll give you an example. When we were building Instagram stories, Instagram up to that point had been this place that you came and you posted your perfect photos. And it wasn't always like that. I think Kevin's first photo, the very first photo on Instagram, was like a picture of his foot on the beach with a dog. It wasn't high class or fancy or very put together. It was just a photo of what was happening in his life at that moment, and his friends and his family loved it. But over time, as the network grew, as more people got onto Instagram, as people started thinking about the number of likes they got, and they got more followers, they naturally, you start thinking like, oh, well, is this going to be good enough for Instagram? I don't know. I got 100 likes last time. Am I going to get 100 likes on this one? Maybe I just won't post this. And the bar for posting on Instagram grew and grew and grew. And that made it a place where it slowly became a place for only your best moments. And I don't know about you, but like I have lots of great moments in my life, but I only have best moments every so often.
Agreed.
Which means I would only post to Instagram every so often. To his credit, and I think this is one of the bits of the genius of being a founder, and also the boldness of being willing to change a product. Kevin said this can't be the future of Instagram. It can't just be a place for your best moments. It's got to be a place for all of your moments. And so in places I've been in the past that were where we were less decisive as a company, we would have said, oh, maybe we would have had the same hypothesis, but we would have said, well, let's try this, in a corner of the product. Let's give this thing a shot. We'll put it in the third tab, and if people like it, we'll start to expand it more, and maybe more people will be able to see it. We'll do a small country test somewhere. And to Kevin's credit, it wasn't just we need to change Instagram. It was we need to change Instagram, and we're going to put this thing front and center. It's going to be on the main tab of the main app. We're going to launch it everywhere. And it gave permission to people to think like that. So I learned just an absolute ton from working with Kevin Systrom, and it's something that I've tried to, in my own poor way, which is nowhere near the ability that guy has to think about product, but in my own way, trying to bring the same sort of focus on the mission to what we're doing at Novi today.
You have worked with some of the top leaders in the world. Some may say in history, time will tell. Zuckerberg, Dorsey, Systrom. You're a wonderful leader yourself, as everybody has seen, and they've lauded you for many years. Now we're entering a very different paradigm. We're entering a very different world in which everyone is either running from digitization in terms of, they don't have the income levels to sustain their companies, or they're well suited to the market that we're actually in, like Novi, like Facebook, like Tesla, like Amazon, and they're pushing ahead. Leadership, not only in the ethics as you talk about with AI, not only ensuring that your product is coherent and it's actually meeting the needs of your consumers, leadership in actually driving the organization forward at this particular point in time in humanity is vital. What do you think, are some of the key tenets we need to be aware of, the students, myself, maybe some of the faculty, other leaders, that you've learned right throughout your career at Twitter, at Instagram, at Novi, at Facebook, at Stanford, at Harvard? What do you think are some of the tenets we need to be aware of in terms of mitigating against some of these risks, some ethical, some not, and also taking, the opportunities that present themselves in this hyper digitized fourth industrial revolution?
So a friend of mine said something that really stuck with me the other day about the pandemic and the way that it's shaping things and the sort of opportunities for personal growth in this time. She said it's almost like your life is constructed of interlocking Lego pieces, and so it can often be really hard to make dramatic change. And I think it's true whether you're talking about yourself on a personal level or whether you're talking about building a business where you need dramatic change and behavior change across a lot of people for the business to be successful. But COVID and the pandemic that has had such terrible effects across the world, it's knocked out a bunch of those Lego pieces for all of us. And that means that it's easier to move some of the existing ones around, and you have these gaps that you need to fill in, and you have an opportunity to sort of assess and think about how do you want to fill those in? What do you want to do to sort of rebuild maybe both personally in your own habits and in how you spend your time, but also if you're thinking about building a business, there are these huge holes that are clear behavioral trends that you now have an opportunity to build into. The world is changing. I mean, we're seeing decades of change happening in a few years, and that it's an opportunity for all of us, I think, personally, to really assess and make sure that we're doing what will be fulfilling to us. And also, if you're a student at Cass and you're interested in entrepreneurship and starting a business, man, there's no better time to create something amazing for the world, because the world is changing so rapidly right now.